We don't need it. We are the music.
I was waiting for the countdown to finish.
Like, Jesus.
Mine actually counted off. It is a hard job pushing that button.
Yeah, apparently. Don't get no countdown.
Nothing.
Easy,
You get a no count off.
So y'all didn't get a countdown this time?
No salute.
No, I
nothing.
did.
We just going.
I was talking about you because the last couple of times
I got a
you
countdown.
didn't. Oh, you forgot one this time.
But the countdown was still going when Zach was like, no music. I was like, no, because it's counting down. Anyway, hi, everybody.
And we're here. Now that mom and dad are done fighting.
Yeah, shut up. Welcome to All the Back Hash, where we talk about all things pageantry arts. I'm here joined today with Zach and Will. I hate saying it like that because it makes it sound like it's my show. But
we're here.
I mean,
by this point, they know who we are. I
yeah,
guess.
it's a host role, if anything.
I guess. I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, we're here. Chris can't talk.
I
think Riverside has actually gone in and taken out his vocal cords. Because you remember for a while there, and my cat's here too. If you remember for a while there, he could say 6 words and then Riverside would cut him out.
I think they got beef.
I remember that.
So just got beef for some reason.
I don't know. So
but no, I do for real feel that first week back to teaching when you lose your voice, that's real.
Yeah, it's yeah. I feel bad because usually the first day back after a long break, the whole period are talking. The kids got their instruments out and they're ready to play them. It's like, yeah, probably gonna play a scale today, and that's about it. Just because we just got a lot of stuff to talk about. And, they're cool with it. They just kind of understand. But yeah, that mouth is dry after that first week.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
just draining water. So, but yeah. So this is episode 23, and basically we're gonna over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna kind of start getting into the WGI world, which is a little bit different than DCI as far as there are way more groups.
Too many.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, way more.
Way more groups to follow and to keep up with in the WGI world than it is DCI. In DCI, I think you have your around 25 world-class corps, and then you have about 15 or 20 that, compete, season long and do their stuff. Just in one classification, going to world championships in WGI, there are 128 groups. Okay.
outrageous.
So, well, I mean, we could talk about that briefly. It's a more affordable way to get your kids out there, honestly.
Yeah.
You got your independent groups, and there's a ton of those too. The circuits, they got circuits. And for those that are kind of new to the indoor world, that's kind of what we call indoor or winter season for WGI. We're going to kind of try to talk about things as if you're new to it and you're just trying to get into it. But so for WGI, they have these circuits that are all across the country. So it makes it easier for high schools and independent groups to compete because you don't have to travel 5-6 hours to go to a show. There's a show, 15, 20, 30 minutes down the road from you. So it's easy for you to compete. You don't have to worry about the travel costs. And then usually those groups are smaller, as opposed to trekking a 130 member corps with all of its staff all the way across the country. You only carrying anywhere from 20 to probably 30 kids. So it's kind of alluding back to another episode when we talked to Terry Sanders about how we felt things were going to go. WGI makes it really easy for a group to join. I've had people ask me, well, what do you do to get started? I'm like, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just get a group together, get a show,
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of groups is they want to wait till that perfect time that the group is ready to compete. They look at the classifications. They're like, is my group good enough to compete against these kids? Blah blah blah. And that's the problem with a lot of that. A lot of times is your group may not ever be ready. And the more you wait, you got to realize that other groups are continuously going to continue to get better. So if you're not already competing with them and growing with those groups at the same time, you're going to be at the bottom no matter what you do. And it is very, very, very hard to come out your first year and just dominate. It's very hard to do it. Has it happened? Yeah. But you got to know what those groups went through to do something like that. So if you don't have the money and you don't have all of the talent and all this kind of stuff, you just got to throw yourself into the fire and learn as you go. It's going to be okay. But because either way, it's a learning experience for the group and the instructors. And I'm telling you, man, it's well worth it in the end.
Well, there is also because you give your kids not only the opportunity to compete in something that's different from marching band, but they get to see what the end goal is, you know, like they get to see, like, I remember when we were competing, you know, we were a bunch of middle schoolers and some high schoolers, and we were at the same show as Mystique. Like, are you kidding me? Like, so it's like we performed and did our little woohoo, you know, yeah, we might have broke 60 today. And then you like get in there and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys have like full on beards and they're running around and they're jumping over each other. And it's like just this overwhelming experience. And then you're like, okay, so that's what we're trying to be, you know,
in the future. Yeah. And I think a lot of groups get intimidated by that. They'll go to something or see something online on a video or something. And they're just like, there's no way my kids can do that. You don't know that though.
Yeah.
Until you get involved.
And you don't necessarily have to do that.
No, whatsoever.
And that's kind of one of the beautiful things about WGI is there's no set formula to win. No. If your show is well designed and your kids execute it well, they'll have a shot. They'll have a shot. And it's just as much onus on the staff members themselves to design and to teach a good show as it is for the kids to perform it.
Yeah.
That's one of my, big things where I enjoy the activity. And kind of going back to your point, Will, people waiting for the right time to get in or, they don't want to come out until they're ready. You got to think about why you want to do the winter group, because it is a resource that you have to use. You have to use some money. There's some time to be taken. Why do you want to do it? For me, I wanted to groom my next crop of percussionists that were going to be going to the high school. I didn't like what my high school percussionists was doing. I didn't like their work ethic. I didn't like what they were. So I was just like, I'm just going to take middle schoolers and do this because they don't know any better. They're just going to be like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Cool.
Right.
And build the program that way. I knew we weren't going to win because there's so much that goes into trying to have a winning show or whatever, kind of like what you alluded to. So if you're trying to go in there just to bring home some more trophies, I mean,
it's the wrong reason.
You're doing it for the wrong reason, and it will show. You might be successful trophy-wise, but the program's not going to last long. Because the first time you meet some adversity or the first time you get beat, things aren't going to go well.
Yeah.
Things are not going to go well.
And I was so fortunate because speaking for this kind of comment, speaking strictly just to high schoolers or people in school in general, it is mind-blowing how much it actually helps wind players as much as it will your percussionists. Because 9 times 10, most indoor percussion groups that you see in WGI or your circuits are full of wind players as well. They're not percussionists. As Zach, as he raised his hand, I fall victim to that as well, as most people may not know. My original instrument is trumpet. I'm a wind player.
Yeah.
I just converted myself to percussion. But what I realized, and I tell people all the time, I was like, a lot of people don't know, me being a wind player, the first group I ever marched with was Music City Mystique. Who the hell does that? You're in high school, a wind player at that, and I'm marching Mystique. Okay, that's cool. So what I started noticing when I came out of that is it's such a different world. It's like, obviously, okay, my wind chops are not going to get better because we're not playing horns yet. Yep. And it's not until recently, obviously, they have indoor winds, but back then they didn't. But the work ethic, the understanding of music in general, my reading skills, sight reading. Oh my God.
Yes, sight reading.
Sight reading.
Just through the roof. I'll never. Yeah. Like, you go to all district or honor band auditions and you play your lyrical piece that everybody's been practicing, whatever. Man. That's fine. But especially as a trumpet player, everybody's going to go in there and they're all going to try and sound the exact same. They're going to play with this big fat vibrato because apparently vibrato makes you a good trumpet player. But then when you get into the sight reading room, that's where you get the cut and dry. You know, that's because anybody can listen to a piece being played to them and just mimic that. But you can't teach somebody to sight read. And me learning how to read bass music, you know, learning 3 other people's music, but also mine at the same time, so I know exactly where I'm supposed to line up. I'd go in a sight reading room and just destroy it because my musicality just automatically went through the roof when it came down to that, especially rhythm and stuff, because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I learned the same thing as, man, I learned so many different rhythms. I'm looking at these pages. I was like, man, we don't play nowhere near as many notes as this. So I was like, God, this is a lot of notes. And then learning how to understand how to read that stuff, it just transfers over. So there are so many benefits. I keep telling people who want to start an indoor group and whatever, realize that those things are going to carry over. I've done that for almost every program that I've been involved with. I've had kids from the wind ensemble, and they go back, and it's a transformation. It balances each other out. But it's all about planning and what you're willing to, give up. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You really, really don't. Get the basics. Try to fund for as many basics as you can or whatever you can afford, and just start. And then allow time to be your ability to get better equipment or get better uniforms or however you want to look at it.
I'll come back to that in a second, but and this goes for color guard too, because your winter guard, you get a lot more dance in winter guard, a lot more choreo and stuff like that. One of my favorite moments is going to my first circuit championships and watching a guard doing an across the floor move, and it was just like somebody copied and pasted 15 kids.
It looks effortless.
They were doing this leaps and jumps all at the same time. It's like, that is freaking amazing. And all of that stuff translates over.
Yep.
If you talk about the color guard world, it does translate over to marching band. And honestly, I think it makes marching band easier.
It does, because where do you think jazz running is coming from?
And even down to like stage presence.
Like body work.
Winter. These winter ensembles is such an intimate atmosphere and setting, because literally you could reach out and poke somebody on the nose during your show if you wanted to, because they're on top of you. And taking that projection of your body and your posture and transferring that to outdoor also elevates that presence in that in that core, in the character aspect and the portrayal of roles. Because if you can look like that, just as tall and confident as you do an indoor outside, that's going to reach to the press box, and to the judges.
Exactly.
So lots of benefits, and I'm going to be honest, we weren't planning on talking about that, but it's good conversation to have, because I do often get asked sometimes, why do you do a winter group, or how do you do it, and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you got to know why you're doing it first and foremost. And then you got to have, and you're going to do it. If you we're lucky because I want to do it and I'm on staff, but if you're going to hire staff outside, you hire somebody that you can trust, that's going to do what they're supposed to be doing and understand your kids and what you want out of the program. Because ultimately it should be an educational process to help kids, get better during the winter season. Because let's be honest, before it, winter guard's been around for a long time, but for percussion, unless your band director programs great music that has good quality percussion lit, or you're going to have a percussion ensemble class, you're not going to get what you need in the winter.
No, you're
Same thing
not.
with color guard. Unless you're taking private lessons or taking dance classes, you're basically, you spend from July to November, and then you're off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Until July again.
Because a lot of these groups wonder, how are these percussionists so good year in and year out in marching band? I was like, a lot of them do winter, or like you said, they have these percussion ensembles they're doing, because sometimes concert band ain't enough for them or whatever. Or even if they're doing solo ensembles or something like that, it's not going to keep the marching band hands moving in the way that they need to. So you go through a whole winter season, you turn around, you get that little break, you come back through marching band. It's almost just like picking up where you left off, and you're growing quicker at a quicker rate than most groups will.
Yeah, and I use it as good training. Like, as we go, I say marching band, like in winter drumline trains us for marching band. Marching band gets us ready for the next indoor season.
Well, and so many things are compatible between the two. Yes, they're different activities, but there's so much crossover and transfer as far as skill set and even show design and things like that. It's really beneficial to have both if you can.
Yeah. It's just, the more you're getting twice as much experience. Like, you really are. Like, designing their marching band show and then designing the indoor. What worked in marching band that I can transfer to indoor? What didn't work in marching band that I should not try to do in the winter?
Because a lot of people don't seem to understand that a lot of people get it backwards. A lot of stuff that you're seeing in marching band is from indoor, but a lot of people don't know that because they're not so associated with indoor. So a lot of us are sitting around, it's like, man, we done seen this. I use an example. If anybody has ever seen drum corps or a lot of these high school marching bands that are, putting their tenor players upside down and having them play, we done been seeing that in indoor. So it's not impressive to us. But the marching band world thinks it's great because it's the first time they've ever seen it. So it's like, no, this has already happened before. And they're just doing it out here because, just like I said, 9 times 10, there's more marching band people who just are not involved in the indoor world like that. So, and that's just one example.
We could sit here and make a full episode of just
telling you
transfers from indoor to outdoor.
And that's not me just saying that. It does go vice versa. You do get some marching band stuff that you see in indoor too, but it's like, what? Because I said it before. Tarpon Springs High School, they did a BOA show where they had this huge globe and the girl was just flying around on the globe, and they brought the whole thing in indoor. I was like, I can't stand nobody on the staff.
Spend their money on that prop, they gonna use it.
I'm telling you, boy, it's gonna go everywhere. I was like, yeah, that prop was awesome though.
That's like Boston in the fire. We're going to roll it back out here, boys and girls.
Repeat it. Rewind.
Put a fresh paint job on that. We're putting that baby out there again.
So, but yeah, it's such a cool thing, and I wish I had known about it sooner. I didn't know it existed until about 2001, when some buddies of mine in college were going to Hopkinsville to do this thing, and I was like, "You should do it too." And I was like, "What is it?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." And then the next year, they're like, "You should try it." I was like, "Yes, I'll try it."
See,
I did it, and it's something that I enjoy going to and doing. Now I get to teach it and get my kids the experience, and we'll be in the middle of marching band. Like, can't wait till indoor. It's like, it is August.
Right. Can we get through this?
Like, we still got an entire marching band show that we need.
I'll admit, about early October, I was ready for indoor season. Yeah. I was ready for the change. I was ready for something different.
Yeah.
I was ready to be around a different group of people. Coming from the brass line.
Yeah.
You had to put your percussion goofiness on, and that's a totally different group of people.
Yeah.
And how we acted and behaved and things like that.
A lot of percussionists are just like that because they know for a fact that now the attention is now 100% on them. Because in marching band, you're not the 100%. So now that it is, there's no excuses for one, and nobody can hide for two, and it's like, here we are.
Any rookie parent that I get, I always tell them, I said, this activity will make your child grow up. They don't have a choice but to. I don't care what grade they're in, 7th or 8th grade. You know, they have to grow up because the judges don't care. If you put them on that floor, and I don't care what activity, percussion, winds, or guard, if you put them on that floor, they're expected to perform at a high level. Doesn't matter the grade.
Don't matter. Toss a quad, you better catch it. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
If you're gonna put it out there, it better be good because if not, they won't get you. So if you have any questions about how to start a group or anything else, put those in the comments. Like I said, we will address it because it's such a great activity, and I met Will there.
Yeah,
you know, I met Will there, and
me too. But I was a student.
One of us made a stupid joke, and we've been being dumb ever since. Like, we can't. Whenever we work together, we were not allowed to be by each other. Nope. One of us was on the floor. One of us was in the stands because we were by each other for too long.
Every time
there was going to be a 10-minute break because we couldn't stop it. It was going to happen. But any questions you got about starting a winter group or want to know more about it, please put those in the comments, or what your experience is with indoor stuff like that, because you know, it's a great activity. It's such a neat activity too. It's smaller than DCI circles in some aspects, which is why you don't hear a lot about it. You know, Will alluded to a lot of marching band stuff that we see comes from indoor, and that's true. You just don't know it because you don't get to see indoor shows. That's not they're not as advertised as DCI shows because they're usually held in a high school gym somewhere. Your bigger shows are held in, you know, college arenas. But yeah, we could talk a lot about this. Yeah. So if you are new to WGI and you're like, all right, I want to get into it, how does it kind of work? So I'll talk briefly about that, and then we're going to give you a couple of groups to kind of look out for, to watch, to kind of, you know, maybe you can start YouTubing videos of past performances of these guys and figure out what you may want to watch and listen to, so you can, you know, get into it. So WGI, one of the other reasons why I like it is the classification system. So your groups there are two big categories. You got, first of all, there's three competitive divisions. There's color guard, winter guard, color guard, percussion, and then winds that started. Has it been 10 years yet?
For winds,
I don't think it's been 10, but we're getting close.
It's getting mighty close. Okay. It's getting mighty close.
There is a winds division. So in a school, if you're a school, you can have all three of those. You can have a wind guard, you can have a drum line, you can have a winds group, and they can all compete. It's okay. So within those divisions, there are three basic classes. Some will argue four, but there's three, and it's based off a skill set. So instead of being based off of how big you are or anything like that, it is solely based off the skill set of what your kids are being asked to do and how well they're achieving those things. And those skills, so if you're a big beginner, and I put those in quotation marks, but if you have a beginner group that is exhibiting beginning skill sets and beginning design elements, you are in classification A. You're in class A. If you are demonstrating and designing in an intermediate scope, then you're in open class. And if you're designing at an expert or advanced level and performing at an expert or advanced level, you are in the world class. Okay. And the cool thing about WGI is you can be moved in a season. So let's just say you come out and you're in A class and you're playing, you know, for drums wise, you're playing, you know, flam flies and paddle fly flies at 300 beats per minute. They're going to look at you and say, that is not an A class skill.
You need to get out the class.
You need to get out the class.
You need to get out the class.
If you're at a local circuit show, you'll get to hear the trumpets. So they will put people in a competitive, you know, Terry Sanders alluded to him being on the steering committee talking about making sure that groups are put in the correct classes for competitive balance. So you can't go in A class and compete in A class if you're doing all this open class or intermediate and advanced stuff. They're like, no, you're performing to be an open or world class group. So you're going to get
especially if you're doing at a high level and it's clean and it's no.
And that's the other cool thing too is you don't have to be winning. I've seen groups finish third or fourth in their class, and then the next weekend they're upper class. Not because they won, but because they said your class, the work that you're doing is not in the proper classification. And it goes the other way too. If you put yourself in world, but the hardest thing you're doing out there is a paradiddle, they're gonna be like, or a single, they're gonna be like, you might want to drop a class.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen.
You're going to get demoted.
Mm-hmm. So, but everything's based off skill. So, you sign yourself up for a class, but ultimately, if you don't belong in that class, they'll move you up. And we can get a whole discussion about whether you should want to be promoted or not. That's a whole philosophical discussion that we can get into later.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the cool thing about it. All right. So once you get your skill level, you're broken up into either a scholastic group or an independent group. And scholastic just means you come from a school, like a high school or even a middle school. And I've seen an elementary group out there every now and then. Okay. So if you come from a school, like a high school, middle school, or elementary school, you are considered scholastic. Okay. If your school doesn't have one and you come from a bunch of different schools, or you come from a university, or you're just a bunch of just random people put together up to the age of 22, okay, then you will be in the independent classification, which means you don't have, you're not affiliated with a school, even though some groups are, but you're not really affiliated with a school. You have people, and you can have people older than high school kids, basically, like I said, up to 22. So, when you get in the circuits, they may have more classes. I know our circuit, there's a lot of guard classes, and we got a few extra percussion classes this year. And that's just on a circuit by circuit basis. So, but yeah, so that kind of lets you know like how they break down into competitive classes. And not everybody goes to World. I know most in DCI, most everybody, if you have a drum corps, most groups do try to go to Worlds. If not, they hit a big regional, and that's their big thing. So there are way more winter guards and winter drum lines and winter wind groups that compete that actually see at Worlds. But there's a good chunk to go to World. Like I alluded to earlier, in winter guard, in the color guard category, in Scholastic A, so the beginning level high school groups or middle school groups, right now there are 128 groups already signed up for World Championships, and there's a waiting list with about 15 or 20 on it.
It's crazy.
So, it's kind of a big deal, for all these groups to do that stuff. So, did I miss anything?
The only thing with the independent world, with the independent classes, there's just no age limit for the independent world color guard. But other than that, the age limit is 22. But winter guard, independent world, only independent world, there is no age limit. You can be 78 out there with your walker still tossing bells in the sky.
Yeah. And there have been discussions on, maybe trying to get that in on the percussion side of the world.
No!
It keeps getting it shut down. So
irrefusable.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen.
No.
Well, I don't want to say ever happen, but
I feel like they would put an age limit on color guard before they would take the age limit on percussion away.
You're probably right.
No more Tom Brady.
Because I think that's been looked at too. I really do. Well, I mean, if there's no, I kind of want to see it for 1 year. Just 1 year. It'll never happen for just 1 year.
We basically did. With
the COVID year.
With the COVID thing, we basically did, kind of. I mean, it wasn't like huge or nothing. It was like people that was like 1 year older. That's all it was.
But man, that year makes a difference.
It did. God.
I had a conversation with Terry about that. And he was like, you can tell, because there were some groups that snuck up on some folks You know, because they had a kid. I hate to call them a kid because they're 23 years old, but
No, they
you know, they had some young adults that extra year of maturity allowed them to do some stuff that they typically don't do. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that we can get into and talk about, but we're gonna try to keep this one fairly short, even though we've talked 30 minutes already. But you know, I love winter season.
It be like it, man.
It's more intimate.
So easy.
It is. Which is good though, because you know, I think some people were just like, "What are we going to talk about for winter?" Like, if you really start talking about it, you can get into it because, like I said, there's so many aspects you can go down, so many different roads that you can go down. So, all right. So, for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about each kind of division, and just kind of give you some groups that you can go and you can start watching, and maybe trying to figure out, hey, maybe I want to follow them. The cool thing about it, WGI has a lot of shows being shown on Flow Marching.
Yep.
So you can watch the shows on Saturday, and that's the cool thing about it is all your shows are always going to be Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
If it's a 2-day weekend, Saturday or Sunday.
You'd be like Will and have his tablet with one show, his TV with a show, one monitor with a show, the other monitor with a show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
On his phone, he's playing Mortal Kombat.
I've been at a show and had my phone out watching another show. Like I've done that. So you can actually, you know, you don't have to just pick a group. You can watch a group and then you can watch these regionals on Flow Marching and stuff like that. And then, like I said, depending on where you live, figure out where there's a circuit out. And if I remember, I'll tell you how to find a circuit near you using the WGI website. But find a circuit near you and try to go to a local show. Because those and they're jam packed. Anyway, okay. All right. Sorry,
it's too easy.
It is, man.
It's too easy.
It's so easy. All right. So let's talk about some winter guards to look out for. I'll let you guys go first because I don't want to steal anybody's. Just in case I do, I can come up with some other ones. So, Zach,
no, Will's going first.
All right, Will, who you looking forward to seeing or what?
I'm actually going to go with my old alma mater. Is an Eclipse. I wasn't a part of them, but I was a part of the group as a whole when they both had color guard and percussion. But a group that I think is very well worthy to watch out for is a group called Eclipse Winter Guard. They were in open for the longest. Now, their story is way longer than this, but they were in open for the longest, and they did such a phenomenal job in changing the whole feel and the idea of the program and whatnot. And then they've got themselves back into the independent world. They are amongst one of my favorites that I always keep an eye out for. I will say, just to throw a second opinion out, one of my top favorite groups is Pride of Cincinnati. Please, whatever you do, find that group and watch them and sit and just enjoy. Just sit back. They are going to do something that is either masterful, beautiful, amazing, outrageous, crazy, insane. I mean, it is the ideas between these top world groups. I mean, I could literally go on and on and on, but Pride is one of my go-tos. It's definitely one of my go-tos. And I will say, like, who is it? Is Light Brigade out this year? Well,
yes. I'm looking at the list. They are, and I was going to pick them. I was going to say them.
Okay, I won't say nothing then. I won't say anything because I'm telling you, man, I've told people before, and when I teach, I tell my percussion students, I was like, if you want to get better at your craft and what you do, you need to get involved in color guard. People in percussion needs to understand how all of this stuff started and where stuff comes from. And if you want to move better and whatnot, I was like, don't just think this is just percussion. But listen, I'm deep in the color guard world, man. I cut in color guard music, and I've written drill for color guard. It's a different beast. than percussion. It is by far a different beast than percussion.
Yeah.
Definitely cannot do two-step intervals. But I learned
No.
that the hard way. So,
No. Not gonna work out well for you.
but yeah, definitely check those groups out and, share us the opinions of those if you have any.
Cool. Zach, you got one in mind?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not as familiar with the WGI Winter Guard part thing anymore as I used to be, but some staple groups that you always hear that are around the top. Pride of Cincinnati is one of those, but then some other groups that when I hear the name, I know, oh, this is one of those that a lot of people shoot for when they want to be in a world-class corps as Paramount. They're one of the ones that are always around the top, and I think Onyx is pretty solid.
Yes.
And then, if you're talking local to us in Kentucky, Lexus out of Lexington, they're a pretty decent group too. I have a friend of a friend, I guess, a mutual friend or whatever, that marched with Lexus for a few years. And yeah. And then kind of echoing Will, I remember when I was involved in the activity, Eclipse was the mystique of our circuit. They were, if you weren't going to see a guard, it was them. And they were very innovative and not afraid to take a risk with their shows and things like that. So, yeah.
Man, when Onyx did that show with no music,
oh my God,
it was just quiet half the show. Boy, I was so mad at them. I said,
it was so controversial too.
Yeah,
so controversial too.
I can't stand Onyx. They was petty for that.
Just it was crazy. I wish I knew the name of it because I would.
I can't remember it either right now, but that's one thing I ain't gonna forget. That
was green. Some other names, like we talked about, Light Brigade out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They are a very unique group. They're not gonna bring home a bunch of trophies and medals and all that good stuff. But what they will do is they will entertain you.
Yes.
They are fearless. You're gonna see tosses and things that you shouldn't be done just because they want to do it. And like I said, they just stand out for being highly entertaining. Fantasia's
Fantasia. I was just thinking about them.
Just a fantastic group out of California, along with who's that other one? Another one. Diamante's out there too.
Diamante. Oh man, that show last year.
There's some good groups. Cool thing about Onyx and Pride, they're probably in the same circuit. So if you live in the Ohio area, you can probably catch them both. But both of those are groups. And then you got University of Central Florida Pegasus. They have not a wins, but an open class group as well as a world class group. And that's you're seeing that a lot more with some of these bigger name groups is now they have a feeder group. So Eclipse World has an Eclipse Open group. I don't know if they're going to be open or A this year, but you have that. Paramount, same way, stuff like that. But those are definitely some guards and some guard programs because, like I said, most of them have multiple groups, but some good guard and guard programs that you can check out in the Winter Guard world. So, all right, let's move on to percussion land. All right. Zach, you want to go first with this one?
Yeah. I'm going to go with the home team, Music City Mystique. I've already kind of talked about them a little bit with my experience seeing them being new to the activity and just being wowed. But I think that they're due for a gold medal. I think it's been a little while since they've had one. But one thing about Mystique is it seems like every time they win, it's like a memorable show that you're not going to forget. Like I think about, Hand of Man. We talked about that before we recorded. Mantra. To this day, you can hear that rhythm, and I could go and play that rhythm anywhere, and somebody would turn their head and be like, "Who did that?"
Like,
I was in the box at the group that I work with for marching band season, and there was another group that did some kind of like tribal-y whatever show, and I played the mantra rhythm, and the dude sitting next to me turned his head, and he was like, "You know that?" And I was like, Yeah, it turns out he's a guy from around Nashville that helped on that show or something. I was like, oh,
Was it Ben Upton or Lipton or Lupton?
Ben.
no, it wasn't.
Ben?
No, it wasn't Ben. Ben was in the show, but this is another guy who he wasn't in it, but I don't remember what his name was, but he knew exactly what it was. And like as soon as I did it, his head just like snapped, and I was like, oh. So, but yeah, it seems like just anytime that they get a gold medal, it's just one of those that you're like, this people are not going to forget this anytime soon.
Any other ones or?
No, I just like them.
You just like it?
I don't care about that.
I mean,
Will.
yeah.
All right, Will.
Well, I mean, obviously, that's my alumni, Mystique. I love I'm always be there, Mystique, and I'm the same way. I actually am going to be once again rooting for them. I'm the same way, like with Mystique. I've said this before. Every time I see a show, one of theirs, a lot of times, because like I'm like a movie connoisseur, man. Every time I see their shows, it makes me think of a movie. Like they put that much into it, and like if you like. Go back and watch Disciples or something like that when they did that show and just watch it. It's like, this looks like it could be a movie or it came from a
storytellers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's amazing the stuff that they do. Even last year, I mean, that stuff will remind me, of some like hardship kind of movie or you know what I'm saying? Like maybe something deep in Africa, who knows? But I like that about them, and that's one of the reasons. Like I'm so happy that I did get to be a part of that organization. But,
they're going to take you.
Yeah,
they're going to take you on a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely have another favorite is RCC. It is a Riverside Community College out of California. I've said it before. I was like, if I'm not talking about Mystique, I'm probably talking about RCC because they have my second favorite style of playing, and it's so unique. We always call them the Blue Devils of indoor because it's basically the
basically the Blue Devils.
It's basically. But it's funny because you could almost say that with Pulse, but it's. I don't know. RCC, I think, I'm going to tell you right now, what did it probably was when they did the Death Show, and I realized the creativity of it and how they are one of those groups that can do any, like, genre. Like, you see a lot of groups, and if they do something different than what their norm is, it doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, what happens if, Madison Scouts or somebody stops doing jazz or something like that? You think of it like that. And I think RCC is one of those very, very, very diverse little groups that they going to come out, be angry. They're going to come out, do a funny show. They're going to come out, do a serious show. They're going to do something abstract. They're going to do some all that. And then you see all these other groups try to do that. And sometimes it flops. It does. Because
you were talking about what happened when Scouts didn't do jazz, and I was going to say they didn't make finals, but
but that show was tight though. See, that show was tight though.
Anyways,
you talk. It depends on what year people come out with. Also,
this is an indoor episode,
but it still makes sense along the lines too, because it's the same thought process and idea with half of this stuff. Because you can say that about everybody. It's like, okay, Mystique goes out of their norm, what people think. Mystique doing darker shows, and they did this show that they did, and they need metal. So it's the same idea, but it'll be crazy interesting to see if Rhythm X can do it again. I heavily favored them to win, and I really was pulling for them to win because of the newness of the show. A lot of groups worked with what they had, and we're coming off of this COVID year and everything, and it was interesting to see, okay, who's going to come out and do something different than they did from the past, or try to do something that is going to elevate everything and not
Like
keep us
what
back
groups
on
are
where
going
we
to play
were.
it safe?
Right. And do that. And that show was very interesting to me, and the way they did it and all that. So I'm wondering, can they do that again?
Mm. I'm gonna throw out a couple of just sort of kind of random ones for different reasons. I won't go into a bunch of detail, but we may do a perk talk and talk about more detail about percussion groups. But Broken City, nobody does what they do.
Nobody.
The way that they do it. The best use of musical space that I can think of. And if you're a fan of Blue Knight's old shows from Drum Corps, where you watch the show and you're like, I don't know what I just experienced, but I love it.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're going to get out of a Broken City show.
All of it, every bit of it.
Infinity's always going to give you something fun. Matrix is going to give you something out of the box. I mean, we've all talked about Music City. I'm a fan of theirs too because it's always going to be something different. Strike Percussion.
Oh my gosh!
You talk about putting a movie on a floor. You don't know what you're going to see out of that group from year to year.
You might
see a whole plane,
737 out there.
A whole plane on the field. And if you don't believe me, type in Strike Percussion on YouTube and look for a plane. Okay, you might see King Kong come out of the back of the backdrops. That's bigger than the arena. You might see that. They're a really fun group. They're out of Florida, and you're going to get a lot of different type of stuff out of those guys. Vigilantes is kind of an up and coming group. They've been steadily climbing, so that's another one to kind of keep your eye on, as well as United Percussion. There's kind of a big five in WGI world class, independent world class. And by the way, all of these groups are independent. So next week, we're going to give you some Scholastic groups to look out for too. But we want the episode to be under an hour and not 7. So, but they are another group that there are a lot of groups that are slowly starting to figure it out. So I don't even know if it's a top 5 anymore, but it's getting close to a top 6 and maybe even a 7.
The 5 is, I think, the 5 was gone the moment Infinity started pressing.
Yeah.
And everybody else started to have to show up, and then Matrix started trying to really get it together, and then you got
Infinity, Matrix, Pulse,
Cap City
Powell.
came out of nowhere.
Yeah, Cap City this year.
And Powell's trying to make a mark. I'm ready for the day Powell beats Pulse.
It's happening guard. Guard, it has happened. The lower class group has beaten the big one.
I've been waiting for it for I don't know how long. I was like, I want to be a fly on that room when them staffs look at each other.
That's gonna be a quiet bus ride. Quiet.
Yeah.
Quiet. He'll be like, so how y'all doing? Shut up.
Basically, I remember that year when we went to Tri-State and I had friends in Russellville, and we ended up upsetting them that night, and they did not talk to me until the day or two after. And
that run was special, though. That was a special run.
Yeah. But yeah, I know how that goes.
Yeah, we've had some quiet bus rides with some. Oh no! Okay, I thought I'd X out. Okay. I was like, no. All right. So, and last but certainly not least, our women's division. Like I said, not very well. I know it's boring words. Not very old as far as years done, but some groups are slowly starting to make their mark in the women's world as well. I'll go with some lower, some A-class groups to kind of look out for. Vortex is kind of one of them. They finished 3rd last year, but I think they have what it takes. I think just kind of learning from last year's experience, trying to figure out how we're going to do this and how things work. I'll be really looking forward to see how they fare. I think they can kind of take a step up and make some things happen. I like the name Chrononium. Chrononium. I think that is Chrononium wins.
Chromium.
No, does it definitely? Oh, yeah, it is Chromium.
Chromium.
Sorry. I can't read. I can't see or read. but yeah,
that's the Cavaliers wins group, right?
I think so. They are based out of Morgantown, Illinois. So yes.
Yeah.
So looking at, they should be a strong group coming back out. Now they're going to have some competition this year. Last year they were the only group that competed in their class at World Championships. So, and this year there's 5 groups. MBI being one of them, Minnesota Brass. So
that's who I was going to say. That's the first group I was actually going to say. I was like, man, Minnesota Brass, MBI, and Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Them really some good ones. I was hoping Rhythm X would bring their wins back out. In the past, man, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, I just remember that first year they did wins, and they come out and just smacked everybody. It's like, oh, they figured it out real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we kind of alluded to this earlier in the podcast where there's not a formula. So, what I would suggest for you guys that are kind of new to this, or even somebody who wants to broaden your horizon, watch a bunch of different groups on YouTube. Try to catch some shows up. Go and get your Flow Marshal subscription. That money that you pay for that is well worth it.
So worth it.
It's well worth it. If you watch 2 regionals, and then they show every class, every group for World Championships. So we're talking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You get all day. You get to watch. So everything. That is well worth the price. But find some groups that you like. Figure out what style of shows that you watch, because you're going to see all different types of stuff. You're going to see angry shows. You're going to see happy shows. You're going to see goofy shows. You're going to see shows that make you think, shows that make you cry. You're going to see all different types of stuff. And some groups just have a certain style that's what they like to do. And if that's that group, then you're probably more likely going to like their show. Or you just might like a way a choreographer writes, or a way a arranger arranges, or a drill writer does stuff. Figure out, the easiest way to be a fan of something is to pick a team to root for. That's why fantasy football is so big, because you may not know anything about football, but if you play fantasy football, you're going to watch because you want to make sure that your player does well. So that's kind of what I would suggest with this is find a group you may be interested in. It may be a local high school group. And like I said, we'll talk about them next week. But it may be a local high school group or a local independent group. And just cheer for them. Watch them. Go to a show. They're great. And you get your money's worth because, a lot of these shows, I know our first circus show that we're going to in February got 68 groups there.
Jeez.
There's going to be flags and drums all day.
Yep.
And you'll get to see a lot, and everybody's so appreciative of it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's so appreciative of it. So, any closing thoughts? Mm-hmm. I know we talked a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. I fear if we say something else, it's going to.
Oh, yeah. If we say something else, we're going to be here. So, but we can get some more stuff out next week, too.
Yeah.
We did. And like I said, if you have anything, if you got groups to suggest, if you got shows to suggest, circuits, sorry, I did say I was going to do that. If you go to WGI and you go to their website, one of their pull-down menus say about WGI. Sorry, no, don't go there. You can go to either one of the color guard, percussion, or winds. And if you scroll down, you'll get to a thing that says circuit partners. You click on that, and it'll give you a list of all of the circuits and their I think their general locations. You can click on that website, and you can see where shows are, what day there are, what time, how much it costs. So that's a really easy way for you to kind of get involved and see if there's a circuit near you that you can go and you can visit and you can watch. So, but if you got suggestions, put them in the comments. Who you want to watch? Who you looking forward to seeing? Who you think is going to win? We might do predictions a little bit later. It's hard to predict Winter Guard and because there's 7,000 of them. But any comments that you have about Winter Guard or questions that you have about it, WGI, put them in the comments. Let us know. We'll address them throughout the next few weeks and stuff like that. So, as always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, which is wherever you can watch the podcast. You can also listen to our podcast on Anchor.fm and Spotify. And Spotify now has video, I believe.
Yeah.
So you can watch us on Spotify too. So cool. So lots of
But
places.
not while you're driving.
But Dad, don't do while you're driving.
Don't do that.
So, so like, comment, share, subscribe. Like I said, we appreciate you being here. Hopefully, you can get some good content and good information. So, I tried to talk fast so we can get as much crammed in as we could. But I think we had some good discussion today.
Yeah.
So, fellas, if you don't have anything else, this will be episode number 23 of On the Back Cash.
Jordan.
Jordan. As always, take care of yourself and, watch out to each other. Be nice to each other. No need to be mean. And wash your hands, brush your teeth. So, take care. We'll see you guys next time. We are Dut out.
The Vikings.